I'm Matt Noble, joined by Andy Nelson, Will Files, Douglas Murray, and Stuart Wilson, the sound team, the Oscar-nominated sound team behind The Batman. I want to kick things off and I want to ask each of you this. What is, in your mind, the sound of Gotham? We'll start with Andy.
Well, the first thing that comes to mind is rain. And sort of oppressive feel. Everything's closing in. So that would be my first take on the sound of Gotham.
Nice. William?
A deep sense of unpleasantness. I think, as much as possible, we tried to echo what James Chinland and Greg Fraser were doing visually, which was, creating this sense of a place that was maybe past its glory and not the most pleasant place to be, but also a place with a lot of interesting things going on. So we tried to add as much depth both in front and behind the screen as we could with the sound to extend the visuals that were already there.
Stuart?
I think rain, of course, and just a growl and mechanical noises of things that just don't quite work, things that grind and squeal, and yeah, a lot of Batman's growl and Gordon's growl and the Batmobile growl. It's just a kind of, everything's kind of low end, dark and heavy sounding.
And Douglas?
Yeah, I kind of think of Gotham as being very rusty and as Will said, kind of breaking down and squealy. Trains come to mind. There's a lot of overhead trains and distant trains and quick train buys and so on. There's a lot of train action, as well as voices of people, sirens, the rain, of course. Yeah, lots of texture, lots of dark, enveloping texture.
Yeah, there's lots going on in the film sound-wise. I want to also ask you guys, which of you was most excited to get into this world of Gotham and Batman? Do we have any big Batman fans amongst you?
It's probably safe to say all of us on some level.
Yeah,
sure. I know I certainly was. In fact, at this point, I can't wait to get back into Gotham. I can't wait for, the next installment because we had such a great time living in this world for a few months. But I was a big fan of, at least not all the movies, but a lot of the films that had come before. And a big fan of a lot of the older Batman comics that this film is kind of more based on, back when it was more of a detective story. So I was really excited when Matt told us early on when he was developing the film. We were all still working on Planet of the Apes together, and he was telling us that he wanted to basically make a film noir. So I think, we were all pretty excited about that just as a concept, even months before he ever started shooting it.
Yeah, I agree. Well, I think it was wondering what Matt would do with it was the most fun, because we've all seen Batman, we all love the different films, but I think it was just knowing, having worked with him over a few different pictures, that he would put such a specific spin on it. And I think that to me was the attraction, was wondering how he was going to deliver this story.
Yeah. And I think also what sort of like approaching a film like this, it's a familiar world, Gotham City. It's a familiar sort of characters that you're dealing with. But it's like, I guess my question is, how do you approach something that people are very familiar with? Sort of when there's so many past works, well, so you're trying to bring something new to it from a sound perspective. Douglas, do you want to have a
yeah, sure, Matt. I would say that this is a very different take on the character than we've seen in any of the films. In this one, Bruce Wayne isn't like a playboy who splashes his money around with lots of, arm candy at all the top events in town. He's a recluse. He kind of lives in his Batcave working on his projects, and he's So there's a quietness to this film and a kind of inwardness, a kind of point of view, like we're trying to figure out the psychology of the main character is kind of a big part of the story arc that begins with him feeling like he wants to take down every petty criminal in town. And then he realizes that he has to, through the course of the film, maybe rethink his approach. And, so it's a very interesting character arc. And so the sound, we were really inspired by that to go with a kind of point of view. We hear and see things through the eyes of the main characters, principally Batman. We're trying to establish that kind of feel early on and throughout.
I think in a lot of ways that's what makes this film most different from the other Batman films. Is I don't know if there's ever been a Batman film that has been so intimately from Bruce's point of view emotionally. Even something as spectacular as the Batmobile chase, you're really with Bruce the whole time emotionally. So that if we filter all of the choices that we make aesthetically through that idea of how is Bruce experiencing this moment, and then trying to add to the audience's experience to extend that feeling to them.
Yeah. Stuart, do you have any thoughts?
Yeah, I was excited to get involved with the voices because I'm working on set recording those voices, and Paul Dano is a very creative actor, and Matt wanted to work with him to find his Riddler character, and so he had this mask, and we stuck microphones on his face inside the mask, and the idea was that when he was speaking, sometimes he uses a distortion effect, so he's not going to be recognized. And the idea was it was very low tech, and maybe it was something he'd adapted from a toy that he could carry around with him. So this low tech distortion. So he's making these kind of ransom calls, not to be identified. So Paul had the microphones on his face underneath the mask, and then he wanted to hear himself, and he would play with his breath and his voice and the sibilance, and then I got a kind of vintage voice modeling unit to put some distortion on it, and then he could sort of lean into a particular sibilance or resonance in his voice as he was speaking, so he could play with it and be really scary, basically really disturbing voice that he came up with. So that was great because he's just such a great creative actor, and he really made the character his own. And then of course the Batman voice is another thing with Robert Pattinson. Kind of he came up with his voice by himself, really. It surprised me because he would, from talking at a normal pitch, he just lowered it right down, and so we had to build mics into the cowl and into the chest piece, and to capture it. And he also wanted to hear himself in an earpiece so that he could, I suppose, have this hyper-real experience of the voice in your head. You're hearing your own voice. He's the narrator, he's the voiceover, it's all kind of blends with the power of Batman. Is he speaks quietly, but it's big, and you still hear it. So that was really exciting for me to experience and be part of.
And something else I think about this film, because it is a bit of a noir type film, it's almost like there's obviously the big chase scenes and the big at the end, the big sort of fight stuff, but there's also some really sort of more quiet moments that help build that world and that atmosphere. Andy, how important are those quieter moments in constructing the sound?
Well, from a dynamics of a soundtrack, they're hugely important. But I think from the atmospheric point of this film, they took us to a different sort of space, because again, the way that Matt works, directing and editing, is that he allows things to build, and he doesn't try and rush a sequence. If there's atmosphere in there, he's going to exploit it and want to use it to all advantages. And there's been comments I've heard from other directors since this film came out about how those quiet moments are so effective. The other thing I want to mention, though, is I think that a huge component of this extraordinary score for this film, I think, and the use of just the sort of very, very quiet string sections, and the dynamics of the chase sequences. I mean, it's very much at one with the soundtrack. It doesn't stand out as music, I think, and I think that's a huge contributor to this atmosphere as well.
And we're an awards website at Gold Derby. You've all been nominated for Best Sound at the Oscars. And I think for a couple of you, it might be your first Oscar nomination. Some of you have been there before. And so, yeah, I think Will and Doug, it might be your first. And Stuart, you won in 2020 for 1917 and the sound mixing category. And Andy, you won. You've won 2 for Les Mis in 2013 and Saving Private Ryan back in 1998. So I don't know who answers this, but like, how much does that mean for you guys, that nomination, and like being nominated together as a team, sound mixers and sound editors together?
Well, I can speak to that part specifically, because I can say it's really meaningful for me to be nominated with particularly Andy and Doug, because we've been working together with Matt for 15 years now. And, you know, I can also say that Andy and Doug were both in many ways mentors for me. So to have been nominated with them for me is personally very touching. And Stuart, it's great to be nominated with you too, but I can't wait to meet you at the party.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think it's always a very special moment, and I think when you've got a team, a tight team such as this, I think it's really wonderful that our peers, because you know we're nominated by the sound branch, and it's just great to know that the other members of what we do appreciate the soundtrack to this level. So I think that's extra special. Yeah.
I agree with that. It's wonderful to be recognized for the work we did on this wonderful film by our peers. You know, not you know, we don't, whatever happens in the final, you know, award, our team was recognized by our peers, and that feels really good.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. The nomination is great. I mean, who wins at the end of the day? I mean, they're all such strong movies, and you can never guess the voting members. But it's funny because this movie was shot in England, and all the post team are working in the States. So although I've worked with Andy before, and we've been nominated together before, which was amazing. But I'm so looking forward it's going to bring us together, and we can high five with Will and Doug in person.
Oh,
Yeah.
The only thing I wish is that somehow Matt could be nominated with us, because
Oh yeah.
you know, so much of, you know, obviously we are working very hard in service of his vision, and you know, these films would not sound the way they do without his input and his dedication to the excellence in the soundtrack. So really, it's a shame that we can't somehow include Matt in the nomination.
Yeah. I mean, Matt was with us at the beginning and of each scene's conceptualization. We would go through scene by scene, and he would share his vision of it, and we would work on it together and kind of develop that till we got something he liked. And then at the mix, he was like literally on the edge of his seat right there, you know, every moment, almost literally.
Yeah.
And he was, it's so exciting to have a director with such a great vision who's so involved. It's just a great pleasure.
And I guess also, Andy, you've got double the chance of winning, because you're nominated for Elvis as well.
That's true. I find it extraordinarily. I mean, it's a lovely feeling, but I also find it very hard because I want to push for one film.
Yeah.
and so I have to sort of try and compartmentalize it a bit. But yes, it's very flattering. I don't take it lightly.
Well, and I believe, Andy, both of the years you won Oscars, you were also nominated against yourself.
Yes, that's true. That's
There you
true.
go. So,
Private Ryan against Thin Red Line, Lincoln.
yeah.
I
So
think yes.
there you go. But hopefully a good omen for your
Maybe that's a
chance.
good omen. I didn't think about that. I love it.
In interest of balance, you have been nominated twice before and not won as well. So, like,
Well, you had to bring that up.
Yeah,
right?
sorry. But yes, no, but a good. It seems like a requisite for you winning is 2 nominations. Just to sort of finish off, guys. What was you can even think of something like a choice that you guys made that made a big difference to the overall film, like something that you had to decide or think through?
It's hard to pin it down to just one, but I can say that one thing that happens on almost every movie we do with Matt is that my instinct on something, for example, the very opening of the film, we have a close shot on a light coming to life, a light bulb coming to life, and then through a series of a couple shots you realize that it's the bat signal. And my instinct was to put in a big powerful sound for that and to make it this big event. And Matt stripped it back, pulled it down. We tried quieter and smaller sounds until all we ended up with was kind of just the small little filament, hearing the filament kind of heat up in a glass tube. And then that we progressed to the point of hard beating rain on the surface of the light. And that's Matt's taste in a nutshell. It's like he'll never go for the thing that's just purely bombastic. He always wants it to evolve in some way. And he also wants to take the audience on a journey. So the idea of starting with some huge sound, he was like, no. We're going to push everybody out. Like, we need to pull them in. And it's funny, however many times I work with Matt, I'm always reminded that he has better taste than I do. So it's important to work together with someone who has really excellent taste like Matt.
Yeah.
I would say that the thing that was so important to this film was the voices of the actors and how difficult it was to we can imagine only, but Stuart knows firsthand how difficult it would be to record in those rainy conditions and with so many other challenges in so many different environments, both on set and on location. And I can't tell you how appreciative I was for the many months I worked on the film, for all the work that Stuart and his team did to capture those really great performances. We had almost no ADR for technical reasons. Like literally, I think there were 5 or 6 lines that we did. And so, it's just an amazing feat that Stuart accomplished there.
And I should say that Will and Douglas, they may have not won Oscars, but they have won Emmys. So you're all award winners. You've all won different awards. And yeah, so I've got here we go. I've got to finish off a riddle since Batman is all about riddles. I found this online, so it's not, I didn't come up with this. I have keys with no locks and make dough without flour. What am I? Riddle me this, Batman sound team.
Music.
Oh, very close, Stuart. Very close.
Not
music. Some music with keys.
Right. Dough. I was thinking money.
Yes. Music with keys.
Keys.
I'm terrible at riddles.
You've stumped us all.
Yeah, I guess you guys are the Batman. It's a piano.
Oh,
Yeah, piano. So you're very
Ah.
close, Stuart. You're very close.
Of course.
Okay.
Guys, congratulations on your Oscar nomination. All the best for the big show. And thank you so much for spending time talking with us. People watching this interview can go to goldderby.com to watch other interviews and make your own award predictions. Guys, thanks so much for the time. I loved it.
Thank
Thank
you.
Thanks, Matt. Nice to
Fantastic.
meet you.
Thank
No
you,
worries.
Matt.